Hey everybody, it's Helen Hillix, your host, and I'm very excited today to talk about kind of a sensitive topic for some people and very interesting topic of, is porn ever helpful? And, I've worked with a lot of people about porn and, what place it has in their lives and why they use porn and, really helping people dive deep and explore what they believe pornography provides for them. And it's been a long journey for me. I'm not going to lie. I had tremendous opinions about pornography, and I can't say that I have none now. But I have a much more open mind about helping people explore it rather than judge it or have some opinion that it's this way or that way. And it's really no different than any other behavior that we have in life. We get to evaluate whether it works for us or it doesn't work for us, whether it gives us what we want and has the consequences that we want, whether it works in our lives or whether it doesn't work in our lives. And it's really no different with pornography, even though it's kind of a taboo topic and people don't like to talk about it, and people don't like to especially uncover what's underneath their porn use sometimes. And some people are just dying to do it. They are so sick of the process and so forth. So it's all over the place. And I'm here today to really just offer you some exploration questions and comments and see what you think. And if you totally disagree with what I'm saying, that's completely fine, and you're welcome to let me know. You're welcome to email me at helen@helenhillix.com. I would love to hear back from you. So first thing I want to say is that we're not talking about educational sex videos. There are some very, very graphic sex videos out there. Dr. Patty Britton has some. Susan Bratton has some on her website. There are some wonderful, wonderful educational sex videos that show you how to do certain things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sex videos that are made for the purpose of turning you on and getting you off. And there's no other purpose for them. They are for the purpose of turning you on and getting you off only. So let's start out by talking about what are some of the common side effects of porn use. And I'm just going to talk, go down the list. And it's a long list because there are lots of side effects that are well known to people from using porn. One of the first ones is difficulty functioning when you're having partner sex. And that is, difficulty getting an erection when you're having partner sex, because it's not what you're used to. You become very acclimated to being stimulated in a particular way, of course, by yourself and by the video. And sometimes it's very difficult then to translate your sexual functioning into partner sex. Another difficulty side effect is, and this is very, very common also, is difficulty orgasming through vaginal sex, because vaginal sex is very different than your hand. So that's another side effect, is that difficulty orgasming through vaginal sex. And, one of the other side effects is that your libido for having partner sex, your desire for having partner sex is diminished or eliminated, because it's so much easier to have an orgasm and get turned on when you're watching a pornographic video than it is relating to a human being and all that goes into that. So that's one of the common things that are brought to me in couples work, are that the woman, and again, I'm talking about primarily males using pornography. I know that it's not only males who use pornography, but it's predominantly a huge predominant percentage is males using pornography. So a lot of wives come in and complain that their husbands have no sex drive anymore because they are masturbating to pornography, and they don't want to be having sex. So it's disruptive to the marriage and to the sexual relationship of the marriage. There's also a developed dissatisfaction with a regular female body. And this can start very early. You know, young boys are looking at porn now, and it's so readily available on the internet. And even, you know, unless you have some pretty strict, even if you have some pretty strict guidelines and software to protect your kids from that kind of exposure, they're probably going to see it on somebody else's computer or phone. But what ends up happening is they get an idea of what an attractive female body is supposed to look like. And then when they are older and they actually see a regular human female body, they are dissatisfied with that. Pornography also acclimates you to very rigid ideas about what is erotic. And I'm not going to go into that so much, but they don't talk about, you know, kissing and affection and rituals of spiritual rituals and so forth being erotic. It's all in a very prescribed way. There are also rigid ideas. This goes back to the dissatisfaction with the regular female body, but there are very rigid ideas of what a woman should look like. And so many of the women in pornography are altered. You know, their bodies are altered, their breasts are augmented, and their butts are, and their vaginas or their vulva is shaved and so forth. So they have very rigid ideas of what is a sexy female body. And it's not what is actually out there in regular life. Another side effect, very common of pornographic use, is the rigid expectation of what your partner should want to do. You know, some of the things that women have discussed with me in that arena are, you know, my husband wants to have anal sex because he sees that on porn, or my husband thinks I ought to love giving him blowjobs because that's the way they act in the porn videos, and so forth. And the woman should be always willing, whatever the rigid ideas are, they don't translate well from the porn screen to their regular lives. They also have mistaken ideas from the porn videos. The men are developing mistaken ideas about how a woman should respond during sex. You know, in the videos, it's like, oh my God, they can't get enough and you're so awesome and all of that. And if your partner isn't responding that way, then there's something wrong with her, which just intensifies the attraction to pornography. There is also, you know, there are mistaken ideas about how a woman orgasms, because in the porn videos, you know, whatever you want to do to her, she is going to come for sure, and she's going to love it all. But that's not, you know, it's a much more of a give and take communication when you're with a real live partner. Another side effect, which is very damaging to men, is that the men who are hired for pornography films have penises that are larger than normal. And sometimes in spite of the fact that they want to watch them, they walk away with the feeling that their penis is not enough. And so that also is a side effect of porn use. And what their bodies should look like. It's the same thing. You know, it's more focused on what the female's body should look like, but the man is left also with, that's what my body should look like. And we talked about this a minute ago with the expectations of what the woman wants, but it's also kind of a distorted idea about what women really like. And there's no reality base in that translates into your partnership. The same thing goes with, what really turns a woman on. And that goes back to how they orgasm. But, what really turns a woman on is not explored tremendously in the pornographic films. There is also an expectation developed from watching a bunch of porn of how a woman shows that she wants you. There are certain ideas that are shown in the porn videos. And again, they don't translate well into everyday life in terms of how a woman actually shows you that she wants you. Another side effect that is very, very common is that men end up fantasizing about porn while they're having sex with their partner. And that ends up creating an emotional disconnection during partner sex that is very damaging to the connection. And oftentimes the partner feels that disconnection and can feel that the partner's not really making love to them, but having sex with a porn star in their minds. It makes me so sad. The more I read my list, the more I think about it, it makes me so sad. But I'm going to keep going. Another side effect of prolonged porn use is objectifying women. And you can't help that because porn stars are objects of lust. That's it, pure and simple. It's not teaching you how to develop healthy relationships and how to mutually pleasure one another in a deep and sacred way. You are taught over and over again just by watching that women are objects for your lust. So it's a very undermining experience when you masturbate to pornography over and over and over. It tends to make you less willing to commit to the challenges of having a normal relationship, a normal partnership, because you realize that you don't have to resolve things in order to have sex that night with your partner. You can just go masturbate to pornography. And that is a very devastating cycle to get into in a relationship, because it can't help but undermine, because you're not practicing actually resolving issues, you're just escaping from them. And it also, there are many times when you develop a dependency on pornography for stimulation and ejaculation and relaxation and comfort. So it can create a dependency, and that's where you go for those desires, those feelings to be met. It also, a side effect of pornography use is it develops a dependency on porn to fill the void where love would normally be. And this is a very sad thing to me, because it's like social media in general, how it has replaced some people's need, or, well, it doesn't replace the need really, but it replaces the effort that they put into actually connecting to people. They are just texting or commenting on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or watching TikTok videos endlessly rather than having relationships with actual people. So it's the same thing with the porn use, is that you develop a dependency on pornography and you think that that is filling a void for you, when actually it isn't. That void of intimacy and connection is still there. It can also help you not date. It's like, I don't need to date. I can get myself off whenever I want to. And the same kind of thing, it avoids, you don't have to face the challenges of risking having relationships with partners because you can just have a relationship with a pretend partner. It can also get you high. You know, people are nowadays are taking like 10 Viagra and masturbating to pornography for hours and hours at a time, you know, in a very addictive way that gets you high. So, you know, and I think the last thing that I'm going to mention is that, and this kind of covers a lot of the other side effects, is that you develop a dependency on porn and masturbation to cover up pain of all kinds. Whether it's the pain of how you feel about your own body, whether it's the pain of past relationships or never having had a relationship, or it's the pain of insecurity, the pain of past sexual trauma, whatever it is, you can develop a dependency on porn and masturbation to cover up that pain of all kinds. And I'm sure there are other side effects of using pornography and masturbating to pornography that I haven't mentioned. And again, I would love to hear from you and be able to add those to my understanding of it. So with all these common side effects, you know, what do people say are the benefits? And people do defend it and say that there are benefits. And, you know, one thing that I have heard suggested, even by sex therapists, is to use porn as a couple to get turned on. And again, you know, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, and you are, of course, you have the right to do whatever you want to do. The question I would ask about that suggestion is that, isn't that like needing to get drunk to have sex? You know, I would ask the question of, why can't you get turned on with each other without porn or without marijuana or alcohol? You know, what is going on there that you two are not able to be turned on by each other in the way that you want? To me, that would be the thing to explore, rather than covering up that question by just getting turned on by an artificial external stimulation like pornography. You know, another thing that people talk about as a benefit is that you use porn and masturbation as a tranquilizer. And again, I would ask kind of the same thing for all of these, is really what's underneath that? You know, why aren't you looking at why you're anxious to begin with and actually change your life in whatever way, or change yourself in whatever way you need to? And this is something that I definitely have had challenges with, is anxiety. But if you use porn and masturbation as a tranquilizer, then you're never really dealing with the anxiety that's underneath it. Another benefit that I have heard mentioned is that you don't become too dependent on your partner for sex. That oftentimes people say we have different sex drives. You know, I have a higher libido than she does. And therefore, you know, rather than asking her for sex, and sometimes she says no, I would rather just take care of myself with pornography and masturbation. And again, I would say, what is it that you're avoiding dealing with there? Because in my experience with couples, the difference in libidos is often something else entirely. You know, one of my favorite examples is a couple who came in to me for that very issue, is the difference in libidos. And by the time we had worked together for a few months, that was gone. It wasn't actually true. His libido was not actually higher than hers, but it was that he had acclimated himself to, he was using sex as a tranquilizer primarily, and as a way to cover up his dependency needs for her, because he had a drug addict mom and really felt a lot of those internal needs for connection, and he was using sex for that, and it wasn't actually libido. And she felt pressured and was suppressing her libido. So once we uncovered all of this and some healing happened, they found themselves to be much more equal in their libidos. So I would say, again, that using pornography and masturbation in order not to have to deal with the discrepancy or the apparent discrepancy in libidos is, again, covering up what's going on under the surface. And there can't ever be any real healing that way. And the last thing that I'm going to mention that people have mentioned to me is that you never get rejected. With pornography and masturbation, you never get rejected. And that's true. That is actually true. The other side of that, however, is that you also don't get intimacy. You don't get rejected, but you don't get actual intimacy. And I think one of the real reasons that people turn to pornography, even if they don't think this is it really is a desire for love and connection. And they don't believe that that's possible, or they don't know how to have it be possible, or whatever it is. So they end up acclimating to pornography and masturbation. So I had a client recently. I did an email series to my subscriber list, and I would love to have you subscribe to me by going to my website at helenhillix.com. And you'll get a free gift, and then you're on my email list so you can hear from me regularly about all different kinds of topics. But I did a series on pornography recently and exploring why people are using it so significantly. And a guy signed up for a VIP day, which is one of the services that I offer, where we are just intensively working for 6 straight hours in a day to address any particular issue, but this happened to be about pornography. And this guy happened to be a counselor as well, who had been struggling with pornography for decades himself. And at the end of the day, he was asking, so that he could really get clear in his own mind and then be clear with people who came to him with issues about pornography. He wanted to ask me these questions, and I loved this process. He said, what if the person only uses pornography occasionally? And what if they never fantasize about pornography during partner sex? Even if they're using pornography regularly, what if they never fantasize about pornography during partner sex? And what if pornography doesn't change the way they look at women? And what if pornography never interferes in sexual function? And what if pornography never impacts what they want from their partner, or what they want their partner to dress up like, or their partner to do? And what if they're not using pornography to deal with any of their feelings, any of their underlying issues? And I was just sitting there listening as he brought up one what if after another. And when he was done with his what ifs, he began to laugh. And he said, "This is ridiculous, isn't it?" And he just kept started talking about how it's never going to happen. It's not possible to be using pornography regularly and have none of these side effects. And again, he's just started laughing, and I didn't need to answer him at all. He answered his own question by just looking at the side effects, and is it possible to experience none of them with repeated pornography and masturbation? And he answered his own question. So of course you can choose whatever you want to do. I'm not here to tell you to do this or not to do that. But if you're one of the people who is ready to explore your pornography use, there are people here to help you. And I'm one of them. I'm not the only one. There are many of us. But I want to really encourage you, if you seek help, to make sure that the person that they're focus and their perspective is to help you explore what's really going on, and not just say, as my husband, when we first met, he was in counseling with this guy. And I admire this so much because my husband told me very soon after we met that he had been addicted to pornography for decades, and that his ex-wife had complained bitterly about it, and that he wanted to stop. And I so respected and admired his being so honest. And he shared with me an experience that he had with this counselor that he was still going to, that in the past, when he was married to his ex-wife, that after her complaining numerous times and being upset about it, he went to this counselor and told him that his wife was upset about him, masturbating to pornography. And the counselor said, and this is a summarized quote, "Well, it's not pathological use, is it?" And that just blew my mind. I mean, it's like, what a question. And of course, my husband said no. And that was the end of it. He felt like he had gotten a rubber stamp on continuing to use pornography from his own counselor. And the only thing I can think of is, without any exploration, his counselor didn't say, well, how are you using it, and how many times a week are you using it, and what kind of impact is it having on your sex life, and blah, blah, blah. He never said any of that. He never asked him any questions about it at all, which makes me think that the counselor himself had an issue with pornography or wanted to defend pornography. So I want to say this in closing, that you wouldn't be concerned about it if it weren't a problem. People don't come in and say, I'm concerned about my drinking, if they drink once a week and have a glass of wine. They wouldn't be concerned, would they? And it's the same thing with pornography and masturbation. It's like, if you feel concerned about it yourself, if you're aware enough to be concerned about it yourself, then it's 99.9% possible that it's a problem. And other people, like your partners, wouldn't be complaining about it either if it weren't a problem, if it weren't interfering in your relationship somehow. So I just want to leave you with the thought that, if you're concerned about it, and if you've been wondering, then consider looking and seeing if these side effects are affecting you. And if you want help, reach out and get it. It's all over the place. And there's no shame, absolutely no shame. As I said before, almost all people who are looking to pornography and masturbation as a regular behavior are almost all looking for love and validation, and there cannot be any shame in that. So reach out, get support. I love you. I hope this was helpful, and I would love your feedback, and I'll see you next week.